Hi guys, welcome back to Writing Time with Miss Megan. I'm so happy you clicked in today. Yesterday we looked at a story by Gail Gibbons and we looked specifically at one section on how to carve a pumpkin. I was looking at her how-to help me do my own how-to on how to carve a pumpkin because carving pumpkins is one thing that I'm really good at and it's something I love to do and I wanted to share it with you guys or teach you guys. Maybe you want to tell us or teach us how to carve a pumpkin too. Or maybe you want to teach me how to do something different. You guys are the teachers, so you guys get to decide. When we looked at how-to helpers yesterday, which are the things that we talked about that we found that Gail Gibbons did, one thing I noticed is that Gail Gibbons added a title to her how-to. That's something I haven't been really doing, but it might be good for me to do that or practice doing it because my audience, which is you guys, will have a better understanding on what my story is about if it has a title. Every story needs a title. So I'm really going to focus on working on creating a title today. The other thing we talked about is that we need to list the materials that our audience needs or the people we're teaching need. That's also something I could really work on. In some of my previous stories, I didn't list the materials you would need. It's really important that when we do a how-to video that we list the materials. So that's another thing I'm going to work on so that I can improve my teaching. Okay, the number 3 thing that we were working on with how-to helpers was pictures, picture plans that teach. And you guys are experts in this. You guys have been making picture plans that match your words all year long. So you guys already know how to do step 3 really easily. Step 4 was numbering for each step. So step 1, step 2, step 3, and making sure that you do that in your picture plan, but you guys have got that. Okay, I'm going to really pick some of these how-to helpers to work on today when I'm doing my own story on how to carve a pumpkin. Great. So I already got started with my picture plan. The first thing that I did is I added a title. So I thought about what I was trying to teach my audience to do. And in this case, I was teaching my audience how to carve a pumpkin. So I went ahead and I titled my story right at the top. Great. The second thing I did is I went through and in my head, I listed all of the steps to carving a pumpkin that I wanted to teach you guys. And remember, I had to think about, when I was listing things, I needed to think about all the materials you'll need. So, because there's a lot of materials and there's a lot of steps involved, I broke my picture plan box up into even smaller boxes. So I drew 2 lines down, which would have given me 3 steps, but then I put a line across because I decided there's 6 steps in my how-to on how to carve a pumpkin. Maybe you're not ready for that many steps, and that's okay. This is an example for my friends who might be ready to add more steps. But if you're still working on just a 3-step how-to, that's okay too. You decide how many steps your how-to is, since you're the teacher. Great. So when I was listing my steps, I thought about the first thing that's important to have or that you need to have when you're carving a pumpkin. And the first thing that I decided that was important to have, and one of the things that Gail Gibbons helped to remind me of, was that you're going to need an adult. So I decided that step 1 was needing an adult. So I'm going to go ahead and illustrate that step here. And remember, one of the things we really focused on is that our pictures match our words. And you guys will see mine is outlined. But you guys won't need to outline yours. I have to outline mine because I'm doing it upside down. But you guys won't do that. You guys will do it on a flat surface or table. And then I give labels that are important for the step. Like step 1, it's really important to label the adult because this step is all about having an adult or needing an adult while you're doing this activity. of carving a pumpkin. Adult. I really think it's important to label the pumpkin too, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. And here's me, or my kid, who is going to be carving a pumpkin. And I think it might be important here to label the pumpkin as well, because the pumpkin is what we're going to be working with. So I think it's important to show that, hey, here's the adult, and here's that I need to carve my pumpkin, and here's the pumpkin, the most important part of how to do my how-to. Okay, so I have adult labeled, I have my pumpkin labeled. Uh-oh. Little boy still needs a face. There we go. Okay, awesome. Now I'm ready to move on to step 2. I think I illustrated step 1 pretty well with my picture, and my audience will be able to tell that this is an adult, here's my pumpkin, and here's me. Okay. All right, one other thing I wanted to point out to you that I really focused on was one of those how-to helpers. I have my title, but what else did you notice that I added to each of my boxes? Hopefully you said it. Look here in the corners. I added numbers so that when my audience goes to read, they'll know to start at 1, next go to step 2, next go to step 3. Okay. Now I'm going to illustrate my next step. Remember, I need to think about the items I'll need. In this case, I'll need a knife or some kind of carving utensil to carve off the top. So I'm going to illustrate a knife here, and I think it's important to label that this is a knife. And here's my pumpkin, and I want to show my knife going into my pumpkin. And maybe I'll show arrows to show that the knife is going around the top of the pumpkin. I'll show my table or flat surface that I'm going to carve my pumpkin on. Okay, great. There's step number 2. Step number 2 was to carve around the top of the pumpkin. Great. So I thought about step 1 was always have an adult. Find an adult to help you. Step 2 was to find a knife or a sharp object to cut off the top of the pumpkin. Step 3, I thought about what I needed to do after I took the top off. I thought very carefully about all the steps, and I decided that the next step was to scoop out the inside of the pumpkin. So I'm going to go ahead right now and illustrate that. Here, you're going to need a spoon. So I'm going to say use a spoon to scoop out the inside of the pumpkin. So I'm going to label spoon because it's important here that you know you need a spoon. I'm going to show that the top is off because that's important also for my audience to understand that the top is not on when we are scooping out the insides of the pumpkin. Here's my flat surface or table. And here's the insides oozing out. And here's my pumpkin. And I'm going to label this, what the spoon is pulling out, as insides. That way, my audience who is looking at my pictures will know that you need to scoop out with a spoon the insides. Okay, great. That's step 3. Again, I thought really carefully about step 1, step 2, step 3. Then I thought about after I scoop out the insides, what do I do next? Maybe you have a different step that you do next, but I always outline or trace with a pen where I want my face to be and what parts of my pumpkin I want to carve. So down here in step 4, I'm going to illustrate that I use a pen or pencil to outline where I'm going to carve. And I think here it's important to label pen. So help me tap out pen as I label this. P-E-N. P-E-N. Pen. Great. Okay, I'm going to keep going. I don't want to take any more of your time, so I'm going to go ahead and show you the fast version of steps 5 and 6. I'm going to do the same thing. Step 5 is to carve over the tracing, and step 6 is to put the lid back on. I'll show you my Okay, and now my picture plan is complete. See if you notice some of those how-to helpers that I used today. And see if you can try using your own how-to helpers when you do a picture plan for me of a how-to. Don't forget those labels, you guys, in your picture plan. That might be another helper we could add to the list. Labels seem to be really important to tell our audience a little bit more about what is happening. I can't wait to see some of your picture plans on your how-tos. Keep sending them to me and Miss Mary. We love to see them. And we love to learn something new from you guys on how to do something that we maybe don't know how. All right. Good luck, and we can't wait to hear them.